Okay, well, I will start now. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to this workshop on comparing PolicyMap and Social Explorer. These are two tools that are available to you through UC Riverside Library, and they are great for looking at data on a map, data that relate to socioeconomic factors and policy decisions and things like that, census data. So if you are not super up on digital mapping or using a GIS, but you do need to look at these kind of factors on a map, either of these are a great tool to use. So we'll take a look at some of the similarities and differences that they have and talk about, I'll show you what they do and you can decide whether they might be useful for you in the future. And I should say before going further that I'm Janet Reyes, the Geospatial Information Librarian at UCR. This workshop is being recorded, so it will be available to you later for viewing, or if you know other people who might be interested, but were not able to attend today, they'll be able to watch it in a few weeks. It'll be available on the UCR Library YouTube channel. And I will also be sharing out a copy of the slides to anybody who registered for this workshop today. So you won't have to worry about getting links or copying down information. All of this will be available to you later on. So with that, let's get going. First, we want to start with the UCR land acknowledgement. We at UCR would like to respectfully acknowledge our responsibility to the original and current caretakers of this land, water, and air, the Cahuilla, Tongva, Luiseno, and Serrano peoples, and all of their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. Today, this meeting place is home to many indigenous peoples from all over the world, including UCR faculty, students, and staff, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these homelands. These days, I always add when we can. We miss being on campus. We look forward to the day when we can return. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see I have included a link to a map of native lands. So if you are curious about how these have been mapped and are interested in maybe a different location than Riverside, I would encourage you when you can to click on through and explore that map. It's quite interesting. So the workshop outline for today is pretty basic. I'm going to just give you a summary on the next slide of the two tools overall and how they compare. And then one by one, we'll look at PolicyMap first and then Social Explorer. And I'll cover the types of data they contain, the formats that are available, as far as the map goes, what you can do to change the appearance of the map. And then there's just kind of some random extra pointers that we can cover at the end. And I'm hoping that there'll be a little time for questions at the end, but certainly if you have some as we go along that you would like me to have answered, you can put them in the chat. I have an assistant, Margarita, today, so she'll be looking at the chat and maybe speaking up if we do see some questions in there. Because I am flying blind, all I can see is my slides right now, so. Anyway, here we go. So to summarize, in a nutshell, if you have to leave in 10 minutes, at least you will have this information, which I think will be helpful. Both tools, both PolicyMap and Social Explorer, can be accessed if you go to databases on our library website. And if you go to the library website homepage, which I have linked to there, and you look on the right-hand side in the popular box, databases is one of the links, and that would be your starting point for accessing either PolicyMap or Social Explorer. These will only work if you are on campus or if you're off campus but have your VPN connected. These are things that the library subscribes to, so we want to make sure that our UCR affiliates are the ones who get to use them and not have them super freely available to anybody. So you do have to be either on campus or have your VPN connected. Both tools have recent US Census data. Pretty soon they'll probably have the 2020 Census data, but right now they both have the 2010 and the year 2000 Census data. And they also have other social science data as well. But they have different strengths. PolicyMap is really good when it comes to contemporary policy and social justice concerns. Social Explorer has that as well, but their real emphasis is historical census data. They have census data on a map going back all the way to 1790, the very first census for the United States. So it's pretty interesting to explore that sometimes. Yeah, so that's the basic difference between the two. These days, they both include COVID-19 data for the United States. These data sets are kind of separate from their basic set of data, but they're easily accessible. The next bullet point I need to explain a little bit. They both present data on a map for different years, and they also have different geographies available. And what I mean by that is you can see the data symbolized by county, maybe by census tract, by zip code, by congressional district. So there's all different ways that the two tools can gather the available data. However, just because you see, for instance, PolicyMap might have a particular data set that you're interested in symbolized by block group, which is a very small unit compared to all the others, that doesn't mean that all the data they have is available by block group. And similarly, it doesn't mean that they have that data for all the years that, you know, for the time span that that tool covers. So that maybe will become a little clearer as I go ahead and show you some of the features. But you can't just assume that because it has this thing that you want for 1 year, it's going to have it for all, or it's not necessarily going to have it at all the levels of granularity that you might be interested in. For both tools, it's possible for you to upload tabular data that contains addresses or latitude, longitude for different sites, and you can create a point layer that goes along with the map that these tools provide. And then if you want to save your work, you need to create an account. It's a free account, but still it's an account that you have to create. I've been using both tools quite a lot for preparing for this workshop, and especially for PolicyMap, what I have found is that if I use the tool, have something set up, close it down for the day, come back the next day on the same browser, it picks up right where I left off. So it's kind of like saving, but it's not a for sure thing. But just so you know, it does have some kind of memory as far as if you're the same person logging in and using it again, it takes you right back to where you left off. Okay, so what I'm going to do is show you around PolicyMap first. Then we'll come back to the slides and I will kind of reiterate some of the things I have shown you. So hopefully that works. Hopefully my brain holds up and I remember to show you all the things that I meant to while we're looking at it. So let's go on to taking a look at PolicyMap. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you get in there. I have already zoomed into our Inland Empire area, but you would, when you first open it up, you'll probably see a map of the United States. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the data that's available in PolicyMap. So there's a couple different ways you can search it. There is a data search bar up here, and you see they've given you some prompts, like you could look for home sales or something to do with public schools. You can look for it that way. There's also these 10 tabs across the top, and each of them leads to a drop-down that contains a particular type of information. And sometimes it goes just one level down, but often it's like several levels down. See, like here's 4 different levels of specificity regarding the Asian race, for instance. So yeah, it's a good way to explore what's available to you. I wanted to show you also, for instance, under quality of life, we have some things that are point locations. So Social Explorer does not really have points that they serve up, but PolicyMap does. And of course, I picked this one because it includes libraries. And we all like libraries very much, right? For purposes of demonstration, I'm going to pick the Superfund sites and just show you what that looks like. So if I wanted to add Superfund sites to the map, I would just click here and they show up as these little L-shaped symbols right around here. And what I've already done, see, this is what, it has a memory of what I did before earlier today. What I already did was filter these. So instead of just coming in all as one type of point, just a Superfund site period, I set a filter to the contaminated groundwater status, and now it has colored them differently depending on what that status is. So that's a nice feature of PolicyMap that you can use. You also have the ability to change the color, change the size of the point feature, and even change what it looks like a little bit. So that's helpful too. In earlier iterations, they did not have that. All the points came in looking the same, and they were really tiny. And so I'm very glad that PolicyMap has added this feature now. So there's two ways you can search for data. If you ever want to have a good, quick overview of what data is in PolicyMap, instead of like exploring all of this or trying to come up with exactly the right search term, a quick way to do that is to come up here on this top level, and there's this data directory. I'm just going to click on that now, and that'll help explain a little bit what I was talking about earlier. It gives you a nice chart of all the data that's available. So it starts out, this corresponds to one of those 10 tabs across the top, the demographics in this case. And all the other tabs are replicated as we scroll down. But you can see that, for instance, for total population, by zip code, that's available, yes, for 2010 to 2014, and 2015 to 2019, not for these years though. So yeah, and you can see all of the different types of geographies are not necessarily available all the way across for a particular year. So that's the kind of thing I was describing. And I think this is a really handy way just to check it out, whether this has something that you're looking for or not. So if you wanted to get down to, say, education, you could just click this and it will take you right down instead of having to scroll down all the way. And then you can check out what categories they have available in education. So let's go back to our map. Okay, it's a little pokey right now. So let me go ahead and add, let me go to income, and let me go to just add median household income. So what you see here is the standard for PolicyMap is to have these areas shaded in shades of purple, and we'll talk about what other options are available to you for that in a minute. Right now, it's showing me that it's shaded by census tract. For both of these tools, what happens is when you zoom in and out, it'll change what level of aggregation you have based on the zoom level. So if I zoom out a little further, I get to zip code tabulations. If I zoomed in, it could get to block groups. If I zoom way out, it could be counties or even states. So you get the idea. If you want it just to lock into census tracts and not change when you zoom in or out, you can click this little lock symbol, and then it won't change. Okay, it'll just stay in census tract mode. If you were interested in learning more about how the data was collected, there's always going to be this source and a link for you to click on, so you could get more background on how the data was assembled. If you picked one set of years but wanted something different, you can click the drop down and see what other years are available and change it right then. Also, in this case, I like this as an example because it comes in showing the median dollars, but if you wanted something different, like the percent change in median income for households, you could change it to that as well. So always good to explore what your options are there. Colors, right? I told you that purple shades are what the default is. However, if you don't like purple, or maybe you need to do a series of maps and you want to use different shades for different types or topics, you have up to 8 color ramps to pick from. And here it shows ranges. So that's like, it comes in with 5 different categories or classes of whatever your variable is, but you don't have to stick with that. You can go up as far as 8 ranges or drop it down to 2. So you could just have one value in mind and everything above that value and everything below that value. You get to set that up how you want. If you do want multiple categories or classes, you have the ability to move this along or actually type in values and change the breaks that way. So you can have, instead of having 5 ranges with these values, you could have 8 ranges and you get to set which ranges, which dollar values those are. And you can always go back to what the default was. So that's a handy feature to know about. As I'm panning around, you're not seeing anything light up. But down here, there's a toggle for having data show up as I move around. And that's fine, perhaps. I find that annoying, so I always turn off the hover option. And what should be happening is when I click, I get something like this. So it's very nice. This is a new feature. If you used PolicyMap in the past, it didn't have this. It shows you like the trend and breaks down for all the different geographies available. I want to show you a trick too. What we can do is for Riverside County, say, I can click on this and maybe I want to see the data for all the census tracts in Riverside County. So I can click that and it generates that table for me over here, which is something I can download. So that's a way you can get tabular data. It's also possible, you see these little scissors here? If I only wanted to have the shading in for Riverside County and leave all the other surrounding counties blank, I can click that. And there you go. I just am now seeing the data for Riverside County. So that's a useful feature. These next 2 things are new additions. I think they're nice, but they're not necessarily helpful in terms of analyzing data. We can adjust the angle of this. So you get kind of a 3D sort of look. That might be nice for the cover of a report or something like that. And you also have the ability to swing this around too. So we can rotate it and do all kinds of fun things like that. But it's totally up to you, whether, of course, whether you would want those features or not. Something else that's new is this gear symbol gets you to base map settings. PolicyMap now offers 4 base maps. It comes in with what they call the standard base map, but you also have a choice of having satellite in the background or terrain or light. And what's really interesting that they allow you to do is you can toggle off some of the base map features. For instance, I've always noticed that the roads are really prominent in this base map that they choose. So you could, let me see if I can find it. Right in there. If I wanted to toggle off the roads, and I don't know why they make this so slim. Yeah, I just toggled off the roads. So if you don't want those in the way of your map, you can choose to show them or not. And what else do we have? So I said that you can generate reports this way. There's also what they call standard reports. And if you were interested in, for a particular type of geography or particular location or a location that you define yourself, you can get any of these 4 reports, I think. I noticed today when I was zoomed in and I was choosing City of Riverside, I don't think the community health report was an option for me, but so be aware that they might not be totally available for every single type of geography that you would want, but there are some standard reports that you could generate from PolicyMap. So also a thing to notice is that right now I have a single layer. There's also the option for multi-layer, which means that what we can do is kind of filter the data layers that we have based on certain parameters. So again, I was noodling around with this earlier. I picked maybe a median household income of 56,000 and under. What happens when you first load in a multi-layer is that it's going to show you all the possibilities so that everything is going to look purple. But then you get to decide for this multi-layer comparison, what's the value that you want to focus in on. So maybe, you know, 85,000, whatever, and under. And then what you can do is add another layer to this. I don't know, maybe I'll just add population density. And again, what will happen is it will load in, it should load in for all levels of population density, but maybe you would again want to set it so that the only things that display on the map are the median household incomes that have this range that you have set and a population density range that you have also set. So we just might be eliminating some features as we go that way. And you can add up to 5 layers. So you can really refine the qualities of a particular area that you want to highlight. This was not a super good example, but I hope you get the idea of how that would work. Let's go back to single layer because there's one other nice thing I want to show you regarding this. If you only, maybe you like the ranges that they set, or maybe you set your own, and then you only want to show the ones that fall within a particular range, you can just click on it, that color over here, and the map will only show you the census tracts in this case that fit that value. So that's kind of nice to know too. Like I said, you can create custom regions, and you can either draw your own region or you can assemble it, which means like you're picking out the census tracts that you want to show. You can also identify a point and then create a radius from that point of whatever length you choose. So a big circle centered on one point that you choose, and then get some data, organized that way. So those are all really nice things to know about. I mentioned that both PolicyMap and Social Explorer have COVID-19 data. You'll see it up here at the top. However, when I click on this, I get kind of a warning about, unsafe link or something like that. However, in my slides, I have a link to the Policy19 COVID maps. And when I click on the link from my slides, I do not get any warning. So you will also have that link available to you after this presentation, if you are interested in exploring what they have. So I think I have covered all the features that I wanted to show you. Let's see how well I did when we go back to the slides. So we took a look at searching for data by the search bar or by the menu. We saw that they have data that's available by areas and by points. A good way to check out what kind of data they have is to look at the data directory. The time frame is only 20 years. I think that's a 20-year moving target. I think a few years ago when I gave this workshop, they had data going back to 1990, 1995. So they kind of try to keep it within a 20 to 30 year time frame, say, but they don't go too much farther back than that. And there's that link for the COVID-19 data if you were interested in looking at that. We saw that the map allows you to compare up to 5 layers and that you can create custom regions. We saw how you can generate a table for a selected, for values in a particular set of data for a selected area. And there are those standardized reports that are available to you as well. We took a look at the appearance and how you can change the appearance of the map by choosing a different color ramp. changing what the points look like. You have the option to clip so that you only see the data displayed for selected geographies. You have the option to make it an oblique angle and twirl that thing around and make it look all pretty. And you have a choice from among 4 base maps, and you can toggle off some of the features that are available on those base maps. That's kind of a nice customization that is available to you. So here are the extra pointers. This version of PolicyMap that I just showed you is what they're calling the legacy. No, it's the beta version, but a legacy version is also available. And unfortunately, not all of the functionality of the legacy version has been migrated to the new version yet. So if you needed to, say, upload your own data or download full files or save your work, you would need to go over to the legacy version for now. I don't know when that's going to switch over, but probably pretty soon. I know there's a faculty member in public policy who is currently using PolicyMap in her class, and she is directing her students to use the legacy version for what they need to do. And this new version is currently optimized only for Google Chrome, is my understanding. So if that's a concern, you might also want to use the legacy version until they bring this new one up to speed with other types of browsers. I have a link there that takes you to an article that summarizes the new features, some of which I just demonstrated to you. The export formats you can see there, and PolicyMap, both of these tools provide good help and tutorials. So I have a link to the tutorials for PolicyMap there if you would like to explore further on your own. So let me take a sip of water, and I'll pause for a second and see if anybody had any questions at this point about PolicyMap before we go on to Social Explorer. Okay, hearing none, I will start talking about Social Explorer. This one's always a little more challenging for me to remember all the whistles and bells and how things work. So bear with me if I stumble around a little bit more on this one. Okay, so when you click on Social Explorer in the database list from our library website, you'll come to this page. And because of the way Social Explorer has there's things set up, I am not going to follow that neat little pattern of talking about data first and then the maps. And it just makes more sense to maybe flow with how they've got it set up. But hopefully, again, I will cover all the points that you need, that I think you need to know. And one thing is, I wanted to go here to demographic profiles first off, because I might forget if I don't do it right away. I don't know why it's buried down here instead of one of these main features up here, but I think they're pretty nice. So what this does is give you a nice little summary of places at different levels of granularity. So let's click on California, that they give as one example, just because we're in California, and isn't that interesting? So yeah, it's a nice little summary. It's kind of like one of those standardized reports that we saw from PolicyMap. You can scroll down and see things about age and race and ethnicity, foreign born, then it gets to educational attainment. So you can see the categories up here. But these are available to you just kind of off the shelf for those different geography levels that you saw on the landing page there. So let me see. Let me just go back. And click that. Okay. So I think those are helpful, and I wanted to show them to you. Let's take a look at this data dictionary. It's less user-friendly, I think, than PolicyMap, because Social Explorer really thinks in terms of the tabular data sources that they have. And they kind of think that maybe you, as the user, also have great knowledge of all the different tabular data sets that are out there from the Census Bureau, from other agencies, and that you would know that if you wanted to find a particular type of data, you would go to, the business formation statistics. But anyway, for any of these, you could click on this and it would tell you more about how the data was gathered and so forth. So this is where you'd find your background information, what's called metadata, so information about the data. This is nice too. This is something that's kind of new. As you can see, it says it's beta, which they've rolled it out recently. They may not have all the bugs out of it, but if you are interested in using some of this data in a GIS of your own, usually in the past, what you had to do is you could access the data from Social Explorer and download it, but then you'd have to go find somewhere else to get the boundaries, census tract boundaries, whatever boundaries, the county boundaries, congressional districts. But now they have them available for download here from Social Explorer. So that's kind of nice if you do want to continue the exploration in a GIS by yourself. Teaching and Learn, these are little modules that they've created already. If any of you are in the position of having to teach and need like little tiny lesson plans using Social Explorer, those are available to you if you click through here. Here are the tables, and this is one way that you can access tabular data. We can do it from within the map interface, but you can also do it just by clicking here. Again, there's two different ways you can go to start creating your report. I don't find either one particularly user-friendly, honestly, whether I click up here or, click here and follow this way. But yeah, pretty much they ask you to pick your geography and then pick the variable and all this kind of thing. It's a little bit confusing, but that's the way Social Explorer does things. At least it's confusing to me. Maybe it's just because I'm not in this field in general. So let's go ahead and now click on this button. This will take us to the maps. And unlike PolicyMap, which was kind of picking up where I left off, it seems like Social Explorer pretty much always brings in population density as the default data set, but then of course you have the ability to change that. And as we zoom in, as you can see, again, like with PolicyMap, the geographies change at your zoom level. As you can see, they have that lovely hover, which I can toggle off down here. I think I will do that because I find it annoying. Yeah, so as I zoom in, now we're getting down to census tract and so forth, and you can tell what default color PolicyMap likes its shades of orange. If I wanted to change the data, there's a couple ways to do that. You can't do it from a search bar right here. It's a little bit confusing. You can click this button, obviously, and it takes you to an interface like this. And you can scroll down and see if you find the category that you're interested in, and then it provides you with, all the different things that you could choose from any of these categories, and you can navigate to what year you want. And there's also up here, there's this little magnifying glass, and that's what you can click to search on a variable, maybe by your search term, right? So that's another option for finding data. Yeah, like I said, it's not super clear cut for me, but that's how they do it. And here again, if you wanted to change the geography that you're looking at, if you didn't want it in census tract anymore, you could see what you could pick from among all of these choices. And also for some data, you have the choice of, if it's a quantity, you have the choice of having, instead of the shaded areas, having bubbles of different sizes within each geography unit, or having dot densities available. I don't find them super effective for most of the data I've explored, but I think in some cases that would be useful, perhaps, instead of having shaded areas representing the quantities or relative quantities of things. So just be aware that that's an option that you might have. Now, this is impressive. This is where Social Explorer, one of the areas where Social Explorer has an advantage over PolicyMap. They offer more color palettes. So take a look at this. Instead of having just 8, you've got all of these color palettes. And then they also offer diverging color palettes. So if there was a figure kind of halfway in the middle, the mean of your data, and you were interested in emphasizing the departure from that mean on either side, you now have diverging color palettes to choose from as well. So there's a lot there. And also, remember with PolicyMap, we had up to 8 categories or classes, and we could change the breaks between them. Social Explorer does a little bit better. It goes up to 11. You can go as far down as 2 and as far up as 11. And then also, I think this is a real advantage for classification method. We didn't really have control over that in PolicyMap, but here it allows us to pick. So if you know you want quantiles or natural breaks in your data, you can set it that way, or you can set it manually. You can move these breaks around. Yeah, so that's something that's available in Social Explorer. Oh, I already showed you about the hover. They don't have too many base maps available, but they do have satellite view. So if you wanted to toggle that on, you could. And it comes in as a gray satellite image, but if you want the color to activate, you can do that here. And you can also change how opaque the overlaying data is. So depending on how much you want that satellite imagery to shine through, you get to set that as well. This little button over here is something that allows you, it says tell a story. It allows you to create like a slideshow from different views of maps that you have in Social Explorer. And I got an email yesterday that said one new functionality is that you can also add things like charts and other types of visualizations to your slideshow. It doesn't have to be just maps. Now, that's a brand new feature. So over here, there are, this hamburger button has a variety of things it allows you to do. You can create a report by selecting things. It's a little bit odd, I think, but I can just go through here and click, maybe this was my area of interest. And then it could be a standardized report. So they have lots of basic categories that they would generate a report just for those, in this case, census tracts that I just picked. Or if I wanted to use, they call it current table selection, but that's really the data I have represented on my map. But they're focused on tables with Social Explorer. They're all about the tables. So anyway, they call it table selection. But if I wanted a report that just highlighted the values for the geographies I picked, I could have that option. What else is on this hamburger button? Again, similar to PolicyMap, we can mask out the data so that it only shows for the selected area that I'm interested in. Again, like PolicyMap, there's a way to filter the data by adding extra layers and establishing what ranges of data for those layers would serve as my filter. I'm not sure it goes up to 5 layers. I'm not sure how many they allow. I think at least 3. Map layers, yeah. So you can upload your own data as a point layer. This button I am a little bit concerned about. This is something kind of new. And they have all kinds of sort of random data. In my opinion, it's random. I looked at one of them and it seemed very authoritative. And I looked at they have one, it's not alphabetical or anything, but I looked at the fast food locations. And of course, looking at my home neighborhood and knowing where some of the fast food outlets are and seeing that they were not represented on the map. And I didn't have a lot of confidence in even like the description of this data set. So I'm not sure all of this would be really authoritative and worthy of you to use. I'm just putting that out there. Some of it seems really good. At least one other layer does not. So just be aware of that. But that's there. We talked about the satellite view. With Social Explorer, unlike PolicyMap, you have the ability to add markers, lines, and shapes on your map. I think you can also annotate, add annotation as well. So that's something different. Okay, let's not do that. And the last little feature I wanted to demonstrate to you is the ability to compare. So what you can do is have two maps side by side, or even the ability to swipe. So what we do here is when you choose a side by side or swipe, what it ends up doing is load in the exact same map. But then the thought is that what you would do is change your data. So for instance, if I wanted, I've got population. Let's see, maybe I don't want to do it that way. So this is where I get a little turned around. What I want to do is get like a earlier year. So if I go back to say, let's go back to 1990. And I wanted population and I wanted population density there. So now on this side, I've got population density for 1990, and here it is over for 2019. And then we could swipe and we could see the differences. So that's kind of nice. If you didn't want to swipe, you could set it up for side by side. And then you have the option for linking the maps or not. So right now it is linked. So if I pan around on one, I'm panning around on the other, but you can also dissociate them. So you could move this one around and this one would stay the same. You could also flip which side one or the other is on. So that's a feature, of course, that we did not see with PolicyMap. Okay, I think I have covered what is available here. I don't think I left anything out, so let's see how well I did. Okay, so I showed you about how to search for what data is available. I didn't mention it explicitly, but on that landing page, the very first thing we looked at before we got to the map, that's what they're calling the dashboard. And you could scroll down and you could see all the other types of data other than census that are available to you, although you can get to them also from within the map interface. You could look at the menu that popped up, when I clicked on change data, and we saw all those layers of options available to you: population, race, ethnicity, income, so forth. Or you can search by the data search bar. That's also available when you click on that change data button. Social Explorer has data for geographies only. I didn't really see that they have point data that you can interact with, although it is possible, again, for you to upload your own point data. We took a look at what the data, at least where the data dictionary is and what they have. I mentioned about those supplemental layers that may look attractive, but I'm just not sure that they're all really well vetted, so beware, question mark, of those. And I showed you that you can now download geographic boundaries from that geodata interface on that home dashboard. So you can filter your map by variable just like you could with PolicyMap. And here you're able to view maps side by side and swipe. You can generate reports again, like you could for PolicyMap, for a layer by the geographies that you have selected. You can also generate standardized reports, and you can also generate reports from the tables interface that you get to from the dashboard. And then the very first thing I showed you was the profiles, the socioeconomic and education summaries that are already preset, ready to go for you to download from that dashboard interface button. For the appearance, saw how many color ramp choices there were, including diverging color ramps. Bubbles and dot densities are another visualization option if we're dealing with quantities. It's not for percentages or comparisons kind of things. And I didn't show you either, but for the bubbles and dot densities, you have choices as far as color and a few other items that you might be able to tweak on that. You can mask the map data just for the ones that you want, the areas that you want to highlight. The nice thing I think that Social Explorer offers is the ability to specify which classification method you want to use for your data breaks. And you can have up to 11 classes if you wanted to. There is an option for a satellite base map, and you could have that in color or black and white. And then I did mention that you can add markers, lines, polygons, and annotations to your map. So extra pointers just relating to Social Explorer. The old version is available. I don't know that there's anything in the new version that isn't, anything in the old version that isn't available in the new version. There you go. But if you are interested in using the older version, that is available to you. You can view census data going back to 1970 on using 2010 geographies. So what that means is that over time, the census boundaries might change. I think sometimes even city boundaries change or county boundaries might change. So you, instead of having those mismatches of I've got this data for this year, but I want to compare it to 2010, but I'm still got this old geography. Now, at least going back to 1970, you can do apples to apples kind of comparisons in terms of the geography. If you want to export the map, it's just PNG. Data can be exported as Excel or CSV, and you can also export the data, the tables into statistical packages too, which is kind of nice. There's like an option there that you can just select that. I didn't demonstrate this, but if you entered, say, an address, a street address for a particular place, and Social Explorer would plop a point down on the map at that place, and you can have the option to look at drive time, like what are all the places I can go within a 5-minute drive of this place. You can also, I think they also have it for walking and biking perhaps as well. Or you can also set a radius. So if you wanted to see all the tracks within a 2-mile radius kind of thing of that one location, you could set that up as well. I mentioned about the teach and learn modules. They range from 5 to 20 minutes and they're for all different skill levels. So again, if you're an educator, that might be of interest. I mentioned about the storytelling, where you can create a slideshow. And for help, there's the link for where Social Explorer would take you as far as giving you more support for different features that it offers. All right, those are all the little tidbits I have for you. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that you will maybe consider using either one of those tools sometime in the future, and maybe not be quite so confused when you first confront it. And you see my contact information there, and I would be happy to help you out with anything that you're trying to do with the tool. I know, like I said, sometimes I get confused, and I've been looking at these for a while, so any confusion you might have is certainly understandable, but I'm happy to help you, or we can work through some things together. So let me stop sharing my screen. And I do see that we have a few minutes left if any of you have questions. Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, thanks for coming today. Appreciate your attention, and be sure to check out other library workshops and offerings, because we're here to help you guys. So yeah. Okay, thanks very much.